We can go ahead and get started, though. Go ahead.
Okay, so you have the Facebook Live up and running? Okay. It looks like, let's call this meeting to order, and everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. And Tom, would you lead us? Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our City Council meeting this evening, Monday, January the 26th. Let's begin with roll call.
Tom Mikulek,
Here.
Andrea Zielinski,
Here.
Jason Tate, Ruth Smith,
Here.
Ellen Porter,
Here.
Katie Williams,
Here.
Zach Wise,
Here.
Shelley Briggs Loosely.
Here.
To everybody in terms of the late start, so we have to have Facebook Live up and running, and so we do, and it took a while to get that to work, so sorry about the late start. First thing on the agenda is our Planning Commission appointment, and the candidate that we would be interviewing tonight was sick, so we did not have the interviews, and that will be rescheduled to another time. So we're starting on number 3B, City Manager Compensation, and John, you're the first one to present your findings on that.
Hello, everyone. So at the December 8th meeting, council voted to approve a 2.8% increase for the city manager. During that meeting, there was some discussion regarding a past practice whereby the city manager has historically received an increase, if necessary, to provide a minimum 10% differential between the city manager's salary and the highest paid department head. After the meeting, Mayor Rich asked for background information on that 10% rule and how much of a salary increase it would take to maintain that practice. Looking back at the history, council minutes and agendas indicate that when City Manager Lance Colley was hired in 2012, council established the city manager's salary at least 10% above the highest paid department head, at that time the fire chief and the police chief. Council continued this practice throughout City Manager Colley's tenure and through the first 6 years of City Manager Messenger's tenure until the 12/8 meeting. The practice essentially has been in place for the last 13 years. The highest paid department head currently has a monthly salary of $14,702. Establishing the city manager's salary at 10% above the highest paid department head would result in a salary of $16,172.20, an additional increase of about $174.20 over the increase granted on 12/8. So that's the history. With that, I'll turn it over to the mayor or answer any questions you might have.
I had John send you the chart that you have in front of you, and John sent it to you. Actually got it from the conversation I had with Zach today, and I thought it was really helpful because he was asking questions about where do you get the number and where's that chart and so forth. And so I had John send it to everybody. If you look at it, line 13, that's where it has the fire chief, police chief, and the public works director. And it has the salaries for that, and it just depends on how many years they've been at the job. And so what you'll notice is if somebody's at the end of the chart there on step 11, then that's their monthly salary, and then that's the one that actually is going to make a difference when you look at what's the city manager make compared to that number. If you have somebody on the list there, those three positions who they're not on step 11, they're on 5 or whatever, then the city manager's salary obviously is above that number. But that's a rule we put in place 13 years ago, and so that's why I want to make sure that you understood that that's what we have. And the chart helps, I think, to explain that a little bit better, because you can see if you do have longevity with those three department heads, then you need to check the 10% rule to make sure that we're abiding by it. Any questions? Ellen?
Thank you. I've got a few. So in reading through the packet, it said that that this was discussed in 2012 when Lance Colley was city manager, and that's when this 10% deal was discussed. is it in rule? Because we keep calling it a rule, and I haven't read anything in the packet anyway that actually says it's a rule. But it sounds like it's kind of maybe an unwritten policy.
Yeah, and it may be my fault for not putting it down in the form of a policy back when we put it into place, but it was discussed a number of times at our council meeting. And Lance, his first year, took a, not necessarily a salary cut, but he didn't have the regular pay that we kind of expected him to, because in order to hire him, there were some differences in terms of, okay, what pay should he start at? And then he told us, here's what's going to happen, because you can't have a city manager basically making the same pay as a department head, because there's no incentive. If you're making the same rate, one has maybe 20, 25 people under them, the other one has the entire 155 staff members. So that's why we discussed it, and we said, okay, from here on out, it'll be the 10% rule, and it only comes into effect when you got a city manager whose salary is right up against one of the longevity, those three positions.
Okay, so my question more is if it's not a rule, why are we calling it a rule? It sounds like it's an unwritten policy. It's been discussed, but rule has kind of a term of art, and I'm trying to figure out why we're calling it a rule, because I don't think it's necessarily a rule.
I've always called it a rule, even back in 2013.
But okay.
Yeah.
That's
so it's been that way. When we put it in place, we call it, here's the new rule we're going to put into place for the city manager. At no point did we say this is a policy or anything like that. We've been calling it a rule way back then.
Okay, but it doesn't really fit the definition of a rule, I don't think. I mean, it's just it's something that you've called a rule, and that's okay. I just was trying to figure out why it was called a rule, because I haven't seen a rule that actually specifies that, and so I'm hung up more on calling it a rule, because I don't think it's necessarily a rule. It's just something that has been discussed and something that the council has chosen to follow.
It was actually discussed and voted on. So to me, that does become a rule that you're discussing it and you're saying, hey, is this what we want to do, yes or no? And then the vote was yes, this will be the rule we put into place. So we were calling it a rule back then. And so to me, it's a rule. That's what we said when we put it into place. From here on out, that will be the rule we'll follow.
Okay, and if that's the case, then it probably should be documented in rule.
And I think I've found that out in this process here, that, yeah, we'll have John write it out.
So another question that I have, I guess, and I've struggled with this a little bit, because from what I understand, it sounds like it's been past practice to provide the city manager with the same percentage of an increase that is decided upon during union negotiations for other departments. And tell me if I'm wrong. And so if we negotiate with, union employees or certain segments of staff and give them a, 3, 4, 5% increase, and call me old fashioned or call me from the private sector, I've never seen in practice where someone who's actually negotiating on behalf of the city with union negotiators to negotiate a salary and for staff employees then to have a policy that they get the same amount that the staff does seems like a conflict of interest in the negotiations, because basically they'd be negotiating for their own increase as well if that's kind of the policy that's been followed. And so I've struggled with that a little bit, because I've never seen that to be a practice in any of my career. Typically, the admin person will negotiate with the union, but it's not necessarily for a increase that would then apply to them as well. And so that one's a bit of a struggle for me as well.
Yeah, and I think it's a little misleading because we set the city manager's salary. So that's the reason why it was okay for this group to say 2.8%, rather than to say, hey, sorry, it's 5%. We had the ability to do that.
Right.
Now, the thing that we wanted to check is it above the 10%? If it was, then that's okay. It would be that number. If it's not, then we need to look at, okay, it's not above the 10%. What does it make to get there? In this case here, that's why I asked John, what does it make to get there? It's $174 a month.
I guess I would add to that, the labor contracts are negotiated independently the council approves them, so they can't go through without that. So the idea that in my position, I'm negotiating directly for myself. It doesn't happen. We're working with the bargaining units based on the law and the practices that are in place that are set by the state. So we don't specifically negotiate for ourselves with that in mind.
Well, thank you for that. And I'm, but when the city manager's compensation comes in front of the council, it's been said over and over that, typically, we give the city manager the same percentage raise that has been negotiated for the staff. And so, I mean, it isn't necessarily what you have in mind, but it's the end result based on what's presented to us, or has been for over the last few years when I've been here anyway. And so it's just something that doesn't settle for me, in this situation, because it is what's asked for the people that are also negotiating. And so thank you for that. I appreciate that. So.
Sure, and again, understand the point, but that's not the practice that we take on. We don't. I wouldn't be doing my job if I negotiated for myself. That's incorrect.
Totally agree. And so maybe going forward, when we're bringing, the only compensation package that we really vote on, there's only two of them. But every year that I've been here, I've been told that typically we give the city manager the same increase that the staff gets in the negotiation. So that may not be the intent, but it's communicated that way. And so we may want to change the way we're communicating that as well. Every year when we talk about the compensation package, because that is how it's presented. And so it looks like a conflict. So that's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Understood.
So the 5% increase over 2024, that's on that form that's on the city's website as far as the steps. It looks like the step increases are roughly about 2.5%. Is that what that is?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. That 2.5%, that happens, I'm assuming each step is annual. Is that
Correct. So generally, if an employee starts at step one, they start that step one pay rate. There's a potential increase based on merit at 6 months, and then at the 1 year period, and then it's annual after that.
That's annual. Is there any sort of increase that's set into whatever system contains this that goes beyond step 11? Like, is there any other, if we didn't have the cost of living adjustment to it, when somebody hit step 11, they would just be topped out. There's no beyond?
They would be topped out. If there was no cost of living increase, that would be static, correct?
Okay. And then so the cost of living we've deemed at 5% according to this. And that 5% is applied to each one of these steps annually?
For each individual year, yes. So last year it was deemed that the increase was 5%, so it was applied to the previous salary schedule, yes.
Okay. And then so where does that 5% for the non-union employees is based off of the 5%, whatever percentage, I guess, was given to the union employees? That's where we came with it? Or was that I'm with Ellen. This isn't clear enough for me for super clear understanding on my end.
Yeah.
So I know I've asked this question before, but I'm looking for a little more clarity on it. Was it that it comes from the union negotiations, or they just happen to be similar rates?
No, that was set because that was the amount that was granted to the General Services Union, yes. Last year, all three union schedules were 5%. Generally, we will follow the IBW or the General Services Union.
Who's present at the negotiations with the union? Who all is present? Is it just you?
No, it depends on the group. There's a team depending on which unit we're looking at. So, public safety generally is going to. We generally don't have the chief involved. We have the on police. In police, it's captain. At fire, it's the assistant chief. I guess with fire, we do have Chief Christopherson involved, and then other members of the management team as whoever the department head feels is appropriate. The General Services Union, since we span a number of different departments, we gather a group. Generally, Public Works is the biggest group, so the Public Works Director is generally involved in that. Ron, the Finance Director, is generally involved in that. And then we have other folks as needed that we have participate.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, are we ready for a motion? I think Andrea's probably got it, maybe. Are you going to do it, Andrea, or Ruth?
I guess I'm still kind of processing everything here. I'm sorry. So you're asking us to make a recommendation if we want to go ahead and sorry.
Hold on, Andrea.
Yeah.
Do you have a motion? Okay.
Okay, this will be my motion. I move to leave the salary increase as voted on in December at the 2.8 level that was voted on and approved. And if the council decides that they want to look at a 10% rule again, I would move that we discuss that again and bring that up for another vote. And if it's approved, then to put it into rule and follow it after that.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second to leave it as it is, discussion. I'm going to go ahead and go first. When you have a contract, you'd be expected to follow it, and I think that we should do the integrity thing and follow our contract. And then if you want to change the rule, we can do that. But you don't want to go through and right in the middle of the process say, oh, by the way, we're going to change it. And I kind of look at it the same thing where, you know how we get like a little phone stipend to help us? What would it be like if all of a sudden I said, hey, forget it, you guys, you don't need it. I'm just going to change it right now. You don't do that. You wait until the process is through, and then you go through and say, okay, we don't like the rule anymore, we want to change it. But you don't change it right in the middle of a contract and say, by the way, we just feel like we're not going to honor that. Now, the question obviously comes up, can somebody actually file a complaint? I believe somebody could. And I believe they have probably a good chance to win the argument because we have this in place. We got past practice to back it up for 13 years, and we can argue over is it called a rule or policy or whatever. It's been in place. I think we ought to do the right thing and follow it, and then if we want to make a change, then we can do so at a later time. But don't do it right in the middle of the contract. I don't think it's a wise move at all. Ellen, you're up.
Thank you. From what I understand, and Mayor, please tell me if I'm wrong, so it's not in rule right now, it's not written in rule, and I did not go back and read through Nikki's contract, but I don't think it's in that contract. I think it's a past practice that was decided on, but it was never codified or memorialized in writing in either rule or in Nikki's contract. Please tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm struggling to call it a rule if it's not codified or memorialized at this point.
Well, I could tell you this, when we put it in place, it was a rule, and I guess you can look at me and say, well, I'm the one that's in charge of that contract, why didn't I put it in place? Sorry, I didn't do that, and maybe I need to do that now to make sure that we understand that. I didn't say to staff, oh, by the way, put this thing in the codified rule, because it probably fell on my shoulders to do that. I'm the one in charge of that contract, but I guarantee you that we spent a lot of time on council, and we discussed this thing. We voted on it unanimously. It was agreed. This is the way we'd follow from here on out.
And the last part of my statement is that there is a very strong contingent out there that is opposed to this. And I think several of us, I'm going to assume based on the public people that I have heard from, to vote in favor of it right now. If there is a rule, I think it's much easier to justify to our contingents.
Yeah, and I believe you're going to find if you go back through and you have past practice and it's been in place and actually been in, I think twice we put it in place because we had a department head right up there at the high level. We put it into place. There is a good argument that that is a rule that we have agreed for 13 years to follow. And I believe that when you keep saying the public says they don't like that, I think it's more the dollar number, but not a 10% rule. When you explain to somebody the 10% rule, policy, past practice, most people will tell you it's pretty obvious it's been in that rule, in that position for some time and been followed before. We've had city managers that we had to bump them up in order to make that. Zach?
So I'm not opposed to any sort of rule. I do agree with Ellen completely that if it's not been written down in a place that we were able to formulate our opinions based on that rule already being there, this really feels kind of like an I told you so after the fact. Like we voted on something that we went. You came back and told us about a rule that existed prior to, as far as I know, anybody on this council's time here. So that honestly sounds like we're all in favor of that rule not being in place. And since it wasn't written down for us to be able to find that rule prior, I think it should stay as it is and we should discuss what that rule looks like. As to the 10% rule, I mean, I think that number would be discussed by the council. You know, the economy that we have in today versus the economy that was in 2012 are different economies. There's a lot of conversation that needs to be had over 13 years. I do think that a rule is a better place than a 5% increase, like just a general 5% increase. I think some standard of a percentage above the highest department head makes the most sense. To be honest, a 5% over a growing income every year annually is kind of like compounding interest on the other side. So just a general 5%, I think it should be some set standard. I like the idea of a 10% better, but I don't like that we are making that decision based on a rule that we didn't know existed. And I think we should keep it as it is and then bring it to the council agenda to have a real conversation about what that rule looks like.
Okay, so I want to remind everybody, last time we talked about this, I mentioned that we had this 10% rule. That's not a surprise. It was at our meeting last time. And if you remember, even when we voted on it, I said we'll have John check to see what if it's there or not. Did we meet the rule? I don't know if we met the rule or not, but there's the rule there. So it's not a surprise, people. You knew about it last time we talked about it, okay? Because it came up very clearly. I know for a fact I mentioned it.
I agree that you did mention it, though we did not have it in our packets. We didn't have it preemptively to where we could have done our own research and looked into it ourselves. We were presented with the rule the moment we realized, or you informed us that that rule existed.
And so I allowed the vote to occur because I thought, well, then we'll do the normal thing, check. And when we did, it did meet the compliance. And so what do? Say, oh, well? No, you need to be in compliance. You don't just say, well, we went ahead and voted on it and you knew full well it was going to be checked for compliance. We didn't have the numbers in front of us at the time, but you knew there was a 10% rule. That's why I asked John. He's not the one bringing this forward. I asked John, would you bring us the information so we can see if we're in compliance? And he did. And you have it in front of you. And so if you don't want to honor it, then you can do that. I'm just telling you that ethically, I think we are not doing the right thing. I don't think we are. We have a contract. You wouldn't like it if that was in your shoes. You wouldn't like it. So I think we need to stand up and do the right thing.
Can I have a rebuttal to that
Yeah.
for a moment?
Andrea?
A couple things. So if we increased this so that, I guess I have a question first, John. If we increase her wage at that 3.92%, that would be that 10%.
That's correct, yes.
That's correct. Okay. So, number one, we had a male city manager that we gave 10%, made sure that he got 10% over all the other department heads. And so now you're saying a female city manager does not allow that. You're not allowing that. So that optics does not look good. Number two, we gave her a very good review. So you're telling her basically that we think you did a great job, city manager, but we're only going to give you a cost of living raise. You don't do that in the real world. You don't do that anywhere. If you give somebody a review, they're doing a good job, you think they're doing the job that they should be doing, you don't just give them a cost of living raise. You also give them a merit increase on top of that. So I know that we're kind of hung up on this 10% rule, but I also want you to kind of frame this in thinking that we have a city manager who's doing a very good job, and she deserves to have more than just a cost of living raise. And so I feel like she should get that 3.92% raise and yeah, that's how I feel.
Katie, you're up first.
I actually 100% agree with everything Andrea just said across the board. And I also want to mention that the municipal court judge, we basically just rubber stamped that 5%.
Zach, looks like you're ready to go.
Yeah. So my issue actually does have to do with more of what I consider the ethical thing to do, Larry. I would consider putting it into a formal rule into place as the ethical thing to do to all of our constituents. It should be something clear and present that is available to all of them as well, not just to what we have as far as a contractual agreement, which when you use the word contractual, it needs to be written into the contract from my understanding of every contract. So the idea that that's backing out of a contract that has words that don't exist within it, from my understanding, and I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, please do bring that contract forward and I will eat every word that I say. The assumption as far as gender, I think is insulting. So I just want to throw that out there. That has nothing to do with this at all. It has everything to do with the literacy used in this. When we're calling it a rule, I think it is the fair and right thing to do for our constituents to have it written into a rule. And we currently voted on 2.8%, and throwing this back onto the agenda because you didn't get the answer that you wanted, I think is insulting to those constituents as well. So I think we should keep it at 2.8% for now, have a conversation of what the new rule looks like, put it into place so that it's the right thing to do for all future councils as well.
Okay, now keep in mind, we're not talking about a new rule. We're talking about one that's been in place for 13 years. Okay, and it's even been dealt with before in the past when the city manager was not at the 10% level. So it's not something new. You can fault me all you want for not writing it down. As the mayor, I should have done that, but I didn't do that. But I know that we put it into place because I was present in all those discussions when the council voted on it. And I know it's been in place for 13 years. One of the things also, just so you're aware, if you want to compare, sometimes you hear about the private industry and then the public sector. When a CEO of a private company does really well, they don't get the salary increase, they get the bonus increase. And those bonuses, if you read in the paper, sometimes they're pretty hefty. So if you look at the city manager we currently have and say, well, okay, what did she do to deserve any bonus? Well, Charter Oaks took 25 years to get there, and she did it. Medical College took 15 years, and she did it. Now, is that any bonus at all? Now, we're not asking for a bonus. All we're saying is, can we match the 10%? In this case, here's the $174 a month. Can we follow the past practice, if you want to call it a past practice and not a rule? Can we at least do that much to say thank you? 25 years of accomplishment in the corporate world is a huge bonus. 15 years accomplishment in the corporate world, a huge bonus. We're not asking for a big bonus here. All we want to do is follow the past practice. Okay? Zach.
So I'm
sorry.
I'm not against any sort of bonus. I just labeling it as a bonus is important because then we know what metrics we're basing that off of. This is being sold as a cost of living adjustment. This is not being a bonus. This is not like we're trying to sell it as one other thing when in all reality it's not that thing. If we want to give a bonus, I'm not against people that work for the city and as part of the administration making ample amounts of money, so long as there's metrics to be made, and there's no problem with that. I have no issues with that. I'm only having an issue, and you're right, Larry, if you're the one who takes responsibility for not putting that on paper, then I do fault you for that. That doesn't mean that we adhere to that. It means that we take what we realize is a problem, and we need to move forward and fix it so future councils no longer have that being an issue. This has nothing to do with us. This has to do with our constituents. We are here as representatives of our people. That's the whole reason we're here. So if there's a lack of information out there for those people, I think it is I think it's our duty to do our due diligence to make sure that that's not going to happen again.
Ellen?
Thank you. And Zach, thank you for some of your thoughts. I appreciate those and agree with those as well. And so, and I do want to raise the, what Zach called the gender issue. I tend to use the term sex because, you know, gender and sex are two entirely different things. I take issue with Andrea's comments as well about male versus female. I have spent 30 years of my career, almost the entire time in senior management, being the only woman at the table. I'm very sensitive to men versus women in the workplace and what their salaries are. This has nothing to do with that. It could not be farther from the truth. And so I think that is disingenuous to raise that issue. So far as a CEO making bonuses, been there, done that. Spent most of my years dealing with that. This does not compare to that either. And so if it's supposed to be a rule, it should be written down. If it should be part of a contract, it should be part of the contract. Right now, it's just elusive, something that people kind of remember. It needs to be codified and it needs to be memorialized, and it's not. And our constituents were extraordinarily clear on this issue. And I know it's not the answer that you want, but it is how we voted. So, and I'm sorry if that hurts people's feelings. If we need to change it, we should change it moving forward, not backwards.
Yeah, and all I'm saying is we have a past practice. I'm assuming that everybody realizes it's been in place for 13 years. Or are we saying it hasn't been in place? Okay. So it's been in place for 13 years. It's been applied for 6 years of Nikki already to see if she has that 10%. So now on the 7th year, all of a sudden now we don't want to apply the rule. So it's to me, I guess it just comes down to, do you honor the rule that we have in place or not? And it's if you don't want to honor it, you don't want to honor it.
Mayor Tom's had.
Oh, Tom, you're up.
Yeah. Can I ask how much of a raise in dollars per month Nikki will be getting with a 5% raise?
I don't have that math in my head. I mean, we can do it for you. At a 5%, that's not what's on the table.
I know, but we kicked around a number here, $174 a month. Now, that's not what her raise will be.
So, yeah, thank you for that clarification. So at the last meeting, an increase of 2.8% was approved. So the $174 is the difference between that 2.8 that was given last time and the 3.92 that would be happening if this were to go through.
Yeah, a number like $700 a month comes to mind. Does that sound about what her raise will be if we give her the 5%?
In total, again, somewhere in that neighborhood. I don't have that number in front of me.
For some reason, I think it was 610 if it was 5%. This one is 3.92, I think.
Correct.
Percent, somewhere on there. So if you're asking for the 5%, that's not what we're asking for. But that one there, when we had the packet 2 weeks ago, I think was 610. I think.
610.
I think, from 2 weeks ago.
And then we're gonna add 174 to that.
No, you're going to be less than that. So we're not talking about a 5% raise. So if it was the 5%, it would be like 610 increase. But we're talking about 3.92. So you're going to be less than 610.
We're talking about 2.8, aren't we?
That's what we agreed on,
Yeah.
2.8
2.8, and then add $174
to that number.
That's what we're at.
to that number,
Right,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. And 2.8 is 300. Is that what it is? 300. Do you remember?
I apologize. I don't have that with me.
Okay. Yeah, it's added on to the 2.8. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. We're going to vote. The motion was to leave it as it is. All those in favor of leaving it as it is, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Motion carries. We'll leave it as it is.
Larry,
Yeah. Who called? Oh,
I
Jack.
believe part of her motion was also to include it in the next conversation to put the 10% into rule. Or to discuss it. Do we need to make a second motion for that? Because I do think that that's an important part of the conversation.
No, that was part of the original
That's
motion.
part of the motion.
So that was what was voted on.
So then that will just be put on the agenda at some point.
We'll see. Yep. Probably. Yep. We'll put it on. Yep. Okay. We're going to move to number 4, commission reports. Anybody have a meeting? Katie, it looks like you're up.
All right. The Library Commission met. We received a report on the statistics and programs. And the library also received a grant to purchase large print books and Spanish language books for all ages from the State of Oregon Library.
Thanks, Katie. Anybody else have a meeting? Are there any ward reports? Okay, number 4, letter A is the election of council president. And as we mentioned last time, it would take all of us to be here. Otherwise, it'll be a special meeting. And so, Amy, I guess that's up to you to put together a doodle poll.
No, so doodle polls we're having terrible response with. People are not being responsive to those. So because we are actively in violation of the charter right now, which says we do it at the first meeting, we really need to think, like, do we want to do it at the end of the meeting? Do we want to pull our calendars out now and look at available dates? But how do we get this scheduled?
Okay.
But doodle polls aren't working. We typically get 5 people to respond, and that will only tell us we have a quorum. It won't tell us that you're all going to be here.
Okay, everybody, what are we going to do? We agreed we're going to have a special meeting. Obviously, I got to check with Jason to see when he's able to walk again because he's got that knee surgery. So it can't be real fast here. He's probably still in pain. But what's that? He could be on Zoom. Yeah, that would work. So what do you want to do? The rules state we have it real close to the first meeting of the year.
I have some potential dates. I don't know if everyone can check their availability. The earliest we would be able to, because we have to do public notice, would be after 5 o'clock this Wednesday, January 28th. I can also look at any time after 5 o'clock. I'm trying to be mindful of work schedules. Thursday, January 29th, that would be this Thursday. We could also look at next Tuesday, February 3rd, after 5 o'clock, or Wednesday, February 4th.
I'm available for all of those days.
The only one I'm not available for is the 28th.
Is that the Wednesday one?
What were the dates after the 28th?
The 29th, Tuesday, February 3rd, or Wednesday, February 4th.
Can we go for the 29th?
I know I'm not around on that Thursday night.
Question. I know we want all council to be here, because I'm probably going to have to leave town next week. Do you have to be here for that one? Because you don't typically vote on that, right?
The agreement was all 9. And so I'd have to zoom in. And actually, if it's at 5 o'clock, I can zoom in. I just got to be at a meeting at 6. So I could zoom in at 5.
That would be great.
On Thursday, the 29th, yeah.
At
5
5
o'clock.
on Thursday.
Zoom, or is it Zoom or show up here?
Yes, I could make it virtual. This will be the only topic on the agenda.
Could we possibly do 5:15?
I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
Can we make this whole meeting a Zoom deal? I mean, because it's probably
Yes.
going to be like 15 minutes, right?
Yep.
So if we just all do it by Zoom, that might make it a lot easier for folks.
I could do the 29th at 5:15.
So we need to check with Jason.
Does that work for you, Tom?
So we'll check in the morning with Tom and Jason.
Yeah, so what I'll do is first thing in the morning, I'll reach out to you and Jason both. And as soon as I have an answer, then I'll blast an invite out to everyone so that we can get the public notice out. Thank you, everyone.
Thursday at 5 o'clock, possibly, or 5:15. 5:15. Okay, put it on your calendars. Number 5 is audience participation. And Paige, looks like you wanted to speak.
Is that okay? Can you hear me? Okay. My name's Paige Bentley. I'm born and raised here in Roseburg. I've been a member on the Roseburg Library Commission for almost 2 years now, and it's been a great way for me to start serving my community. Since I grew up going to that same library, it's been awesome getting to take my daughter to that same spot now, and watch her grow and enjoy the library as I did. I'm here today because I'm concerned with the Homeless Commission and their lack of involvement with the community, and the people that the commission is supposed to serve. I know that there's currently 3 open spots for the commission, and I personally know of 2 and probably about to be 3 people who've applied and been denied. And the commission hasn't held a meeting since June 2025. And that goes through the hottest and coldest months of the year, and they haven't met once. That seems kind of cruel to our homeless neighbors. The excuse is that there aren't enough positions filled to hold the formal meeting seems to be kind of self-imposed, since there are people who've applied and I think would do well, but they haven't been accepted, except a real estate developer. So I don't understand why there are such vacancies with people applying. As someone serving in a similar role on a commission, it's not that hard to meet once a month. And that doesn't give a lot of time to start tackling systemic issues like homelessness. So from June 2024 to December 2025, the Homeless Commission has canceled 10 times. That leaves 5 meetings and a tour in the last 2 years that they've done. Every other commission meets monthly. So I'd argue that homelessness is probably one of the largest issues that our county's facing, so it seems a little useless. UCAN just held their first of the season warming center at St. Joseph's, and from what I could gather, besides the employee at UCAN, nobody on the commission, I know there's not many people on there right now, nobody's been directly involved with the warming center, either volunteering, coordinating, anything. Seems like a missed coordinating opportunity, or for people who are on the commission and claim to care, it kind of leaves some room for questioning. So these are just observations that I feel like people need to be making as active members in the community. We need to look at the people serving in these roles and what they're doing, and if they're actually helping people or just serving their own interests. Instead of accepting their claims to have logical solutions, they need to actually prove that by having some kind of action. We need to start holding people accountable, and they could easily start that by attending mandatory meetings and doing real things to help real people. Thank you.
Thanks, Paige. Anybody else want to speak that didn't sign up?
Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I appreciate you guys and all the hard work you're doing. I'm a little shocked at, every time I look a little deeper into this stuff, it just keeps getting worse. But I mean, I'm trying not to be too cynical here. So anyway, I just I was shocked a little bit that we're comparing the city to a private company. If this was a private company and you were the CEO or whatever, I think we'd be looking at this a little different. And I wonder how, successful Roseburg would be as a private company. It just depends on who the customers are, I think, and who the shareholders are or whatever. And it's all very concerning to me. So I want to assert that, talking about rules, it is kind of a literacy issue. I'm seeing that calling it a rule when it's not in any writing. But, I can see it's a practice that you've been using for, 12 years or whatever you said. And that's great. But if you forgot to put it in the rule book, it's not in the writing, I don't understand why you think that's valid. So I'm glad you guys voted correctly there on behalf of the constituents after making us sit through another 45 minutes of talking about the city manager's salary, who makes more than the governor, and somehow that's your super important thing. Was that $700 a month compared to what is the rest of the salary? It's a lot. So I'm just concerned about your guys' consideration for the public and your constituents. It's really, and what Paige just mentioned there kind of blows my mind when you put it that way, that we've got a homeless commission. Again, we're running a city. It's a city management issue here. So calling it a private thing, I don't know. You've got it all wrong. And using identity politics to justify this is insane. It is kind of in step with, private businesses to do that. So that literacy, and she said it was cruel. I would say it's cruel and unusual to put these people through this and be canceling all your meetings and not having people that are experts and homeless advocates on your homeless board. So yeah, I'm going to apply to be on your homeless board, but it seems ridiculous. I'm starting my own People's Homeless Commission. I've been talking to the people that live there and manage the camp that's currently there, that has no bathrooms. And you're, okay, for another day, we're going to sit here and talk about the city manager's salary. This is, I'm outraged. I'm sorry. I'd love to be up here, accolading the city manager for her work. But I appreciate you guys all being here volunteering on this council. And I'd like to, just step it up here, because as I understand, this is borderline fraud stuff. And, as Larry Rich has said, you've got this guy setting precedent for Roseburg's homeless camps as labor camps. This is labor trafficking. He uses the labor for his private for-profit business. It's called wage theft. This is fraud. He's a fraudster. You guys are working with a fraudster. So it's not surprising that we're already seeing other signs of all these conflicts of interest and fraud. It's just kind of normal now to Roseburg. I think that's why a lot of people don't come to the meetings. And so I encourage everybody else, more people, to come to the city council meetings and see what's going on here and be a part of it, and give us your 2 cents, especially people being thrown under the bus.
Thanks, Max. Anybody else want to come forward that didn't sign up? Okay, we're going to move to number 6. We have the resolution on the Oregon Government Ethics Commission.
Good evening, everyone. So at the November 10th, 2025 meeting, council discussed considering a policy for reimbursing legal fees related to Oregon Government Ethics Commission ethics complaints that are ultimately dismissed. I have prepared a draft policy for council consideration. The policy allows reimbursement only when the OGEC issues an order of dismissal and establishes approval authority and documentation requirements. The issue for the council is whether to adopt the attached resolution adopting the policy. There are 3 categories that fall under purview of the Oregon Ethics Commission. They are lobbying, public officials, and public meeting law. Ethics is governed by ORS Chapter 244. You can find more on the OGEC website. The topic of the proposed policy is reimbursement of legal fees incurred defending ethics complaints if the complaint is ultimately dismissed. Adopting a policy would ensure consistency, compliance with state law, and clear administrative procedures. Under Oregon ethics laws, public officials must defend OGEC complaints individually. Without approval of the governing board, the city cannot legally reimburse these costs. The proposed policy applies uniformly to all employees, commissioners, councilors, and the mayor. It allows reimbursement only after OGEC issues an order of dismissal confirming the complaint was unfounded. It authorizes the city manager to reimburse the first $5,000 or up to $5,000 in documented legal fees, requires city council approval for any reimbursement beyond the initial $5,000, establishes uniform documentation and eligibility standards, ensures compliance with the state statute by prohibiting financial benefit without formal governing body approval, and prevents an official from participating in approval of their own reimbursement requests. This policy provides the procedural framework necessary for fair and consistent handling of ethics-related legal fee reimbursement while protecting the city from improper expenditures. Costs will vary depending on future OGEC complaints. Eligible reimbursements up to $5,000 may be approved and paid by the city manager. Any reimbursement exceeding the first $5,000 must be approved by the council prior to payment. The council has previously authorized reimbursement of legal fees related to a complaint filed against Councilor Biggs Loosely that OGEC dismissed. The city manager has received a reimbursement request from homeless commission member Sean Pritchard. He also incurred legal fees related to a complaint that was filed and ultimately dismissed by OGEC. Adoption of a policy will provide guidance for the city manager to respond to the request and will ensure the city has a legal complainant reimbursement framework in place before any further OGEC matters arise. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Can I ask who brought suit against Shelley Briggs Loosely and Sean Pritchard?
I don't have that information.
It was Bernie Woodard.
Thank you. Is there any recourse for Shelley and Sean and the city after having paid legal fees in a suit that's thrown out to get recompense from, in this case, Bernie Woodard?
It's a great question, and I don't have the answer, but I can look into it if you'd like to see if they can ask for attorney fees. There has to be something that allows for it, so I'd have to look at it.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't quite get what you said. Can you, in the microphone?
I just said, right offhand, I don't know the answer to that. I can look at it. It usually requires a statute that allows you to request your attorney fees. So I just have to look at it.
Got it. Okay.
You said to ensure the city has a legally compliant reimbursement framework. What does the legal compliance look like?
The resolution policy is right behind the resolution itself in the council packet.
So, but there's no state requirements for this?
Sorry, state requirements for the adoption.
Yeah, for any sort of reimbursement framework. Like this, the cities aren't required to have some sort of reimbursement framework. We're just trying to make it legal within our framework, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Ellen?
Thank you. So I remember when we talked about this, whenever it was that we voted on the one reimbursement. I only recall talking about it and as it pertained to council members at the time. I don't remember, and I'm not arguing with it, but I just don't remember talking about employees and commission members. I'm guessing that was added after our discussion.
I don't know. It makes sense to include employees and commission members in it because the whole idea is to have some kind of framework, because the issue, and this kind of goes to Zach's question, is the city can't just do this without having some kind of process through which people can be recompensated for those. So that was kind of more to Zach's question, is you have to have some kind of framework that allows to do this, instead of just, the city can't just pay these out and say, oh, you got a dismissal, here's the money for your attorney fees. We can't just do that. We have to create, and when we did do that one, we had to come before the council and deal with it. So I think what they were trying to do is come up with some sort of like framework so we know how we're going to deal with these if we get them in the future.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. Thank you for that. No, my question was more, I just didn't realize that we had added employees and commission members to this, because I remember only talking about it in regards to council members. And I'm not picking that one. I just am trying to figure out when and how they were added, because I don't recall that being part of our discussion. That's all.
I can't say for sure whether it was or it wasn't. I thought that it was. The commissioners are volunteers, much like you're volunteers, and so you're certainly welcome to take that out. But I think, we don't want our volunteers targeted and not protected. If we're going to protect one group, should we protect everybody? That's the question you have to answer for the policy.
And that's not and I wasn't suggesting that. I just was trying to figure out when they were included, because I don't recall them being included. But you know what? It seems like I don't want people to misinterpret my question. So I'm going to resend my question, because the answers seem to be going elsewhere. I just am trying to figure out when they were added, but never mind. We won't.
Yeah, and we did a little research on whether or not the city would be responsible for defending employees, and the answer we got back was no, employees would have to hire their own attorney. So same question, is that something that the policy should cover reimbursement for if it's dismissed? Because there is no framework in the statute about the person that's filing and whether or not there's responsibility there.
Okay, thank you. And then I've got a few comments on the language here, but I will hold that for a little bit. But just realize that I have comments, but they're not in the form of a question. So I'm going to hold it, but I want to be able to get those out there.
Anybody else? Questions? Zach?
So, in there it makes a comment of prevents an official from participating in an approval of their own reimbursement request. Wouldn't that be a situation where somebody would just need to recuse themselves from the vote because of that? So
Yeah.
they wouldn't necessarily really have influence over it other than their presence, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and we had discussed, I'm not going to use the word rule here, but we had discussed about it's okay for people to sit in the room during those conversations if that's happening.
Zach, I can hardly hear you.
Sorry. I'm not going to use the word rule here, but we had discussed it as far as the opportunity for people to stay in the room if we were to discuss those things going forward, correct?
Yes, it's the rule that chair back is where we landed, but under 7.3, Jennifer's included, an individual requesting reimbursement under this policy shall not participate in any approval, discussion, recommendation, or vote related to their own reimbursement request. So, for instance, if it's a staff member, if it's a city manager, the charter says city manager can participate in all discussions, and city manager doesn't vote on anything, so there's not a conflict of interest. This policy says that person's not going to participate in this discussion. So things that maybe are covered other places, but it doesn't cover an employee because they don't vote. So and a commission member wouldn't be voting at the council level, but they may want to come speak on their behalf. This would prohibit that. So it covers more than just you guys when we include commission members and employees. So that's, I think, why she captured that language and covered it in the memo.
Now, if it landed under your approval, is there any requirement in here for you to inform us if that does happen?
I don't remember seeing one.
No, it would just, you'd have to have the letter from OGEC, which would trigger the payment for reimbursement.
The only reason we would be informed further beyond that would be as if it was more than $5,000. Correct. Okay.
You can certainly add that into the policy if that's something that you want to add.
That would be the thing that I would like to see added to it at the very least. I will say, just from hearing about and seeing these situations come. Well, actually, a question: how many times have we actually paid out people's legal fees in the last? How often does this happen?
I think this is the first time somebody has done this at the Oregon Ethics Commission level.
Okay. I mean, I would like to see something put in there so that we're at least notified. This informed me about things. We've talked about vocalizing since, in particular the situation with Sean Pritchard. After that situation, we've talked about vocalizing our own personal conflicts and possibilities of conflicts. And I think that that's important information that we should be aware of when this stuff is arrived. Like, if it's inspiring people to have questions or raise any sort of complaint, I would like to be informed when this stuff is happening.
Can we go ahead and add other comments about the rule language?
Let's check, and thank you for respecting the question time. So does anybody else have any questions? All right.
Wait, Tom, are you getting ready for a question? Oh, okay.
Go for it.
Okay, thank you. I'm up?
Yep.
Okay. So a couple of things. I remember when we talked about this before. I believe I made the comment that if a person is going to request reimbursement, that the council would need to be notified prior to that they would be potentially seeking the reimbursement. Otherwise, we're kind of covering a private debt. So that would be language that I would like to see added to it. Is it needs to be? Let me finish if I can, Shelley. That requesting approval beforehand would be good. Another comment that I have is these issues right now are due to ethical considerations, and I think ethical considerations really need to be very transparent. And when we talked about it before, I believe that those were going to come in front of council and not the city manager. And so one change that I would like to see is that those requests come in front of council, if nothing else, for the sake of transparency for the community. Even the first $5,000, I think, needs to come to council and not be administratively approved. So I feel that's very important.
So that was based on the direction this body gave us to go write this policy. Was the first 5,000 was administratively approved, so that's why we put it in there.
I think that was initially I think the $5,000 approval level I think was mine. I don't recall ever saying that it would be administratively approved. You know, I may be wrong, but I don't think I came up with that, because I really feel strongly that it needs to be transparent. I would suggest that we take it out and turn it back to council.
I think what happens, we put Andrea on the spot and asked her for a dollar number, and then she mentioned 5,000, and then we all went from there.
I guess clarifying, so this is after a person has already been found, like they have not committed any ethical, is that correct? And so I think that was why the person has already been found that has been dismissed. And so that's why the $5,000. I'm okay with, hey, by the way, this person had a illegal, sorry, my brain is not working tonight. They had an ethics complaint and it was found to be tossed out, dismissed, then I can understand why we would be informed, but I don't think we need to say yes or no that this person, yeah.
Oh, Shelley, you're up.
Yeah, sorry. It's a confidential matter. So if the person is coming before council with the matter, it's now become public. So that's why you don't have that step. Yeah. It's not a public issue.
Most of it is open public record, though.
Did you know about mine before?
Yeah.
It's also
I think it was a newspaper. I think it was a newspaper, if I remember right.
I mean, it is also being paid for with taxpayers' money. So that to me does turn it into a public matter.
So this one here says you have to go through the ODAC investigation and it's dismissed, and then you can produce the dismissal from Ethics Commission and then ask for the reimbursement up to $5,000. If it's more than $5,000, then it has to come to council for approval. Correct? Is that how it currently reads?
That's correct, and they have to bring the legal receipt for reimbursement as well.
And as far as the question in terms of privacy, if somebody files a complaint, the only way anybody would know is if somebody runs to the newspaper and says, hey, by the way, I filed a complaint against so-and-so. Or the person who's been filed against says, hey, I got this paperwork that I got to file against me, right? Because otherwise, they don't advertise it at the Ethics Commission. Oh, by the way, somebody filed this paperwork against the person.
I'm not sure, maybe Jim knows. I know that if you are found guilty, that does become public record at that point. But if it's an unfounded complaint,
I mean, nobody advertises that or says that, right? Unless you want to, if you're the one filing the complaint, you want to tell everybody.
I'd have to refer to Jim.
Receives it.
So I believe that preliminarily that it is not immediately a public record. It depends on if it's founded or unfounded. And I'd have to look at it more to determine that, but I do think there is some privacy involved in the actual determination.
Okay, I really think that I remember reading, and I know we've got someone in the room that may have the answer to that, but it sure seems like I read that both in terms of Shelley and Sean before those cases were dismissed.
So there's a preliminary review, and it's not public at that point. If they actually decide to do an investigation, then it becomes public. So I think,
right, okay.
I think so there is a phase that is private.
Yeah, and so,
and once it becomes an investigation, I think you would be aware.
And so during the preliminary period, though, that's pretty high level and probably fairly brief, and chances are someone's not going to incur a whole lot of cost during that preliminary period. So that'd be my guess based on.
So I'm just trying to understand, is the part that you're trying to determine is that they need to say they're going to be seeking reimbursement at what point? Is that, and what point would they have to say they were seeking reimbursement?
That's a good question. I don't know if I would have the answer to it off the cuff, but it sure seems like they should at least put the council on notice that they could be seeking reimbursement before they start incurring costs that they're going to, ask for reimbursement for. But I also believe that it needs to come to council to approve those reimbursement costs.
So the minutes from that meeting say Councilor Zelinski moved to direct staff to prepare a policy for council consideration establishing parameters for reimbursement of legal fees related to OGEC complaints that are ultimately dismissed, with a maximum reimbursement of $5,000. Additional expenses would require council review and approval for amounts over $5,000. Motion was seconded by Councilor Williams. So that's what we brought. Doesn't mean that that's what you have to approve, but there's no sleight of hand here. There's lots of transactions that don't come before council. And we could notify you of ones that are under 5,000. That doesn't necessarily have to happen in a public meeting. The reality behind these is people are drugged through the paper and convicted by the press long before they get to their actual hearing, and then something gets dismissed. So there's some pain points that have already happened. So to make more pain points for folks is a little tough for me to, if we can do the 5,000 that was in the motion, great. If you don't want to do it that way, then give us some direction and we'll bring something back.
Yeah, and Nikki, thank you for that. If I can just follow up, since that was a response to mine. I wasn't trying to imply at all that there was some sleight of hand, and so please don't interpret it that way, because it wasn't my intent. But at the same, I'm not going to say at the same time, when someone is coming and asking for reimbursement for fees for a case like this, they are asking for public funds for reimbursement, and I think that deserves transparency. Does it cause more pain points? It might. But people also don't have to ask for reimbursement if it causes that much pain. And so I just think if it's going to be public funds, I think we should be transparent about it. And who knows, maybe I'll find myself in that situation one of these days. But I still would think that if I'm asking for public funds, I think the public has a right to know.
I think we kind of got a little out of order because I said you could start making comments, and I don't even think we have a motion. And so, I don't know if the mayor wants to ask if somebody wants to make a motion or what we want to do, but
I would prefer just to have the discussion and kind of see where it goes before we lock in some type of a motion. So, if everybody's okay with that.
Okay, so I wasn't there that night, and hearing the discussion and everything, it's been very interesting. I'm kind of thinking we're not ready for a motion. It sounds like we still have some more things to work out, so that's kind of where I'm at.
So, Mayor, I think we do have a person that wants to make public comment by the phone. Just to let you know. Whenever you want to
got your Zoom thing to work?
We don't have Zoom.
Oh.
I can use my phone and put them on. I can put Mr. Woodard on speakerphone so that he can make his public comment.
Oh, okay. Let's go ahead. I don't know how. What's that? Okay, we'll hear Zach, and then we'll hear. Are we going to be able to hear him on the phone?
I'm going to do my best, and if you can't, then you have his written comment as well.
Got it. Okay, Zach, you're up.
I just want to say, I appreciate you, Nikki, bringing forward what was motioned in the last one. Thank you for doing that for clarity's sake. And I'll genuinely say for my sake, at least, or my stance, it was a bit of a misunderstanding that it under 5,000 would go to administrative view. I just wanted that for clarity's sake. Like I would assume that anything when it comes to that amount is, or the public dollars like that are going to be transparent when being up here. So that was a total misunderstanding on my part. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay. We're going to see if we can even hear it on the phone here.
Okay, Bernie, can you please speak?
Yeah, this is Bernie Woodard, 3261 Northeast Follett Street, Roseburg, Oregon. I'm following up a letter I sent to the council on item 6A, resolution number 2026-02, concerning reimbursement of legal fees related to Oregon Government Ethics Commission OGEC complaints. I stand opposed to those or to this resolution. As many know, I filed two complaints, two of them against UCAN, and I've had people say that they were frivolous, not people in the community, but the mayor and the city manager has made comments about them being frivolous to people, and they're not frivolous. To give everybody an idea, on the one against Sean Pritchard, the Ethics Commission unanimously, after I think 2 months or 3 months of investigation, a preliminary investigation, unanimously voted to move forward with a full investigation. That full investigation went 6 months and went through a lot of different emails and meetings and things like that. And it was basically determined that since he was an individual and it wasn't UCAN, that it would be dismissed. What the OGEC specifically found after months of investigation is exactly this. Case number 25-194 ELG Pritchard at page 16 states, and this is after all of the investigation and at the very end, after they determined what needed to be done, it says these words: certainly the evidence in this case supports the allegation that Sean Pritchard used his position as a homeless commissioner to take actions that ultimately financially benefited UCAN in several instances. That is exactly the wording in their determination. So it's not a Bernie Woodard wording. It's there after their investigation. They said the evidence supports the allegations that Sean Pritchard was using his position as a homeless commissioner to take actions to financially benefit UCAN. And it wasn't just one time, it was several instances determined by the OGEC. The OGEC is who we have to be able to go to as the community to say, these things are being done wrong and you need to look at them. They looked at them, they made a determination, and the determination was UCAN had benefited financially in several instances. For those that don't know, UCAN's institutional benefits described in the record of that complaint was the UCAN seat and the Homeless Commission for Roseburg and UCAN as an entity received substantial institutional benefits connected to these actions, including, as the complaint alleged, they had their Mill Street building mortgage removed, and so they didn't have to pay $270,000 because the city paid $270,000 for that building. Number two, they had $1.2 million in improvements to the building done, but they never lost possession of that building. They continued to be in the building and using it while $1.2 million of taxpayer money went into it. Then number three, they had a sole source contract for $3,250,000 given to them that expired on June 20, 2024. And then an operational contract extension July 1st, 2024 through June 20, 2026. These are several $1 million. It may be $10 million total. So we need to look at these things, that there is facts involved here, and what's our commissioners doing? And if the commissioners are seats that are like UCAN or other corporations, they need to be held accountable also. They made millions of dollars here. So for the city to have to pay for an investigation when they made these choices to do these things, that's what's frivolous. Don't choose to pay these kind of things. Make people be accountable for what they do themselves. That's what I intend to do in this situation, because 400 more people are out there homeless, but only a few got put in these kind of areas at Navigation Center. And now the navigation contract's coming up on June 30th again, and it's probably being redone in a hidden room somewhere, and it needs to be made public what money is going where and who's going to be the new operator, and it should be bid out. Not going through the same kind of process that we went through 4 years ago this week, when it was hidden that UCAN would be the actual operator, and the mayor and city manager told the city council that they would not. They said they would not be financially benefiting from that business, and so, or from that sale. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bernie. All right. We don't have a motion. We're talking about this thing here in terms of any changes, and then if it leads to a motion, then that's fine. If it's more of just a direction for staff in terms of what are some of the changes to put in place, that's fine too. You're up.
Thank you. I would appreciate the opportunity to maybe go back and make some written comments. I don't know if you can send that to us, maybe in a Word document form, and maybe we can go through and make some changes and send them back to you and bring it back to council at a later date. Is that possible?
Wait, so how is the body acting in that way? That's the challenge. Is we had direction, we want to change direction, but we need to do that as a body, not as individuals, if we can, please, because we need to land on the same page if we're going to bring it back, which I'm 100% fine. That is
Do we put that in the form of a motion, Nikki? Is that the most appropriate way to do it?
The easiest way to do it is if we have agreement from the council on what needs to be changed, then we can bring it back with those changes made. I think what she's concerned about, if it gets sent out to one counselor and one counselor makes changes and we bring it back, and then we're going to end up right in the same place where then a bunch of people are going to be like, why did that get changed? What's that? So we just need like nodding of heads on if everybody's comfortable with X, Y, and Z changes.
Through and somebody mentioned, hey, I'd like to look at this change, and then we could say, okay, nodding the heads, is that something that everybody agrees that we want to change? And then we'll be able to write that one down and just kind of go through and figure out the changes that we might want to make.
And I'd like to be able to sit down with pen and paper rather than to have to agree to the specific change. I mean, I know I put a couple of things out on the table today, but I would love to be able to sit down with it, but we may not have the time to do that, I guess.
So I guess I have a question. You have that many changes in this that you don't think you can discuss it with all of us?
That's not what I said, and that's not what I meant. No, I brought up two potential changes, but I mean, if we have only one opportunity to make changes at this point, I would like to be able to just really sit down and, you know,
would it be helpful to just put it on the agenda for the next time, give you more time to look at what your potential changes were? But I don't have any problem with that. What I don't want to do is make edits and then have other counselors not like those edits and get stuck in this process a little bit. So
yep. That would be great. And that's why I was kind of hoping for a Word document, and that way I could kind of make the changes within the document.
And we can do that, and you can just bring it back with you. I just don't want to base staff changes on just one opinion when you're supposed to act as a body. So that's where I get a little bit hung up.
Totally agree.
Okay. Yep. We can get it out that way if that's helpful.
Because I don't have any problem if we have 3 or 4 changes that we want to look at, talk about them tonight, say, hey, do we agree, yes or no? At least you can put that in. Next meeting, we'll look at it again. And if we're not ready and we have some more changes, that's fine. At least we have that written in the packet of tonight when we leave that, hey, here's 3 or 4 that we're interested. And they can start putting that together, if that's what we want to do. Zach?
That would be considered tabling it, correct? Wouldn't that be what we would be doing for the next meeting? Yeah.
Well, you got to somehow give them the ideas to put into.
No, I'm just. That
Yeah, we
was a
don't have to
question.
formally table it.
Okay.
If you guys all,
I was just
you
gonna
could if you wanted.
Okay. I would have no problem with putting it onto the next agenda, for the sake of not wasting any staff resources until we come back with all of our ideas. Because if they make changes to it now and then we bring it back in 2 weeks, and then there's more changes, that means they're going to spend a couple weeks worth. To me, if there are changes people would like to see, I think preparing ourselves and coming back with a proper discussion is what this is all about.
So you'd prefer to wait until next meeting, hear all the changes, and then they'll bring it back, and then if we need more changes, we'll do it again.
Yeah, I think giving everybody an opportunity to come up with what they would view as the right changes, if they think there should be, or 2 weeks of an endorsement of what it is, I think both are valuable.
So it would be helpful if you can take a look at that sooner rather than later, so that
So you'd prefer to have them sent to you ahead of time so you can at least see them? But how would you know that everybody's okay with it? Do you have to have everybody here to at least give the nodding of the head, okay, that's a change, do we all agree? So you're kind of stuck at having it at a meeting, right? Because if somebody sends their changes to you, you're not going to just assume that everybody wants that and put it in for the next meeting.
So the one thing that could be helpful if people send us their suggested changes, if we have multiples that are around the same, that's helpful. If there's something that statutorily can't be done, we'll have a chance to look at that. I think that's what Jim might be getting at.
Yeah. What I was understanding is that we're going to let everybody take a look at the policy, and if they think that there's things that should be changed, send them in, and then we would just be compiling like, okay, these are the changes that, and yeah, if everybody says put it like this, it's going to be easy to know that, okay, that's something that everybody on council wants to do. And like Nikki said, if there's things that we can't do, then we just say that. So it'd give staff a little bit of time to just compile what everybody turns in.
So either way, you still end up in the meeting here with a discussion on the items, either tonight or the next meeting. So I guess it just comes down to, you want to talk about some of the items now, or you want to say, forget it, we'll just talk about them all 2 weeks from now? Really don't matter.
Is there any sort of deadline we're trying to adhere to when it comes to this one?
I don't think so.
Like, is there any reason we can't put it off for 2 weeks to have the conversation?
I don't see why not.
Okay.
Okay, so if you're okay with putting it off for 2 weeks, then nod heads so that we know that that's what people are thinking.
I'm not getting give me a nodding heads that are really clear if we're doing it that way. Okay. All right, we'll wait until 2 weeks, and then say if somebody has some ideas, you want those ahead of time? And see if they're doable?
Yeah, and I can send out the Word doc as well to everybody.
Do those iPads, I turned my laptop back in a while back, do those iPads support a Word doc?
I'm sorry, I don't know off the top of my head.
We'll try.
I'm being indicated that, yes, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe like this, right?
Yes, I have Apple products, and you can use Word documents on them.
So, Mayor, I just wanted to recognize, because I thought Jennifer did a great job putting this policy together from scratch, reflecting what we understood the direction to be. So I did want to give her a kudos on that.
Great, thanks. Yep. All right, we are on number 7. Homeless Commission Organization, first reading and possible second reading.
Okay, so at the last meeting, January 12th, based on a bunch of changes that we've seen recently with some organizations pulling out of the Homeless Commission, Council directed staff to bring back an ordinance reflecting a change to 7 members, including 3 named seats and 3 seats to be filled by persons located within the Roseburg School District boundary. And so we have brought back that proposed ordinance for you. In the memo itself, it has the language that was struck from the existing ordinance and the changes that were made. The one thing I want to point out is, based on comments I heard during the meeting, the language that I proposed, and this is of course entirely up to you, is the previous at-large positions now state 3 members shall live or work within the boundary of the Roseburg School District. So we did not talk about the or work part, but after I left the meeting, thought about the comments. Some people own businesses in town that may be impacted by this. They may not live in that school district boundary. So do we want to include or work as one of the potential qualifications? I see some nodding yes, I see some nodding no, but that's the language that I included for your consideration, but that is your decision. We had talked about doing first and second reading tonight with an emergency to go into effect right away so that we could start filling those positions, because we are down 3 and having trouble. Some of the reasons we didn't have meetings is because we didn't have quorums. Happy to answer questions because I know I covered that pretty quickly. And the other change that we made was going to monthly meetings, which is the normal under all commission rules. So I took out the section that said they meet every other month.
Okay, questions? Ellen?
I'd like to have a discussion. I know this is not a question, but I'd like to have a discussion about the or work language. So
let's just start out with if there are any questions.
And just so everybody's clear, the boundaries for the school district go all the way to Green. How far to Sutherland? How far to Glide? How far?
Not as far as you think to Glide, because like the Sunshine Apartments are actually in the Glide School District.
And Green's the farthest south, correct?
Yeah, then Melrose area. I don't know the exact boundary to the west, but Melrose, Garden Valley, those areas.
And then the Winchester Dam is the north boundary? Or north, even north, farther north than that?
Don't know. Let me pull it up.
What's that?
UCC is in the school.
Well,
UCC is?
yeah, the neighborhood around UC. Yeah,
Got it.
they go to.
Okay, any questions? All right, we had a request then to talk about live or work in the boundaries. You want to talk about what you're
sure.
talking about?
I'm happy to. Yeah, I've felt for a long time that it would be nice if we had some people on the Homeless Commission that were maybe directly impacted. And we've got a lot of people on the Homeless Commission in the past who, well, almost all of them were representatives of various nonprofits. And then we had the mayor for a while, and then Shelley was the at-large person for a little while, who is now the chair. And I guess the or work component concerns me because there's a lot of people that are directly impacted that can't seem to get a seat on that Homeless Commission. And I just think that that's very important, that people that are directly impacted have an opportunity to weigh in if we're going to continue to have Homeless Commission meetings. And I'm just nervous that if we do the or work, that will be a opportunity then to exclude the people that are directly impacted, or continue to exclude the people that are directly impacted.
And that wasn't the intention at all. I don't know if the folks that own Therapy Plus live in the Roseburg School District boundary, but I know they work there and I know that they're impacted. So my thinking was actually the exact opposite, that are we excluding people that are impacted that maybe work in a area that feels heavily impacted? So again, 100% a council decision, but that was actually my thinking pattern, was we may have folks that are impacted that don't live in that boundary. And there's no way to tell who's going to apply, that's the...
And thank you for that. And that makes sense. But I mean, we've been exclusionary prior to this point, and it has been so hard for people to get on, to have their voices heard on that, with this issue, because we've been very exclusive. And I just, if we're going to do this, I think we need to make sure that these people have an opportunity to have their voices heard and to partake in it. We haven't allowed that to now, and I'd like to make sure that we do allow it now. So
just so you're aware, I don't think it's who sits on that seat so much as can you come to the meeting and audience participation and have your voice heard. And I don't think anybody's been denied that way. So it's one of those things where, yeah, you can go on Zoom, you can show up to the meeting, it gets your point there. If it comes to a vote, then true, you don't have the vote, but at least that's not the issue when it comes down to, can somebody be heard? Just like here, for somebody in the audience to say, well, I'm not heard because I don't sit up here on the chairs, that's not true. You come to the audience participation and you can be heard. You can send an email. So there's plenty of ways to be heard. And before I leave, I want to mention something on when I heard about the work one. Realize there are some employees that work for the Roseburg School District that work directly with the homeless that don't live right in that boundary. They could come from Sutherland. I'm trying to think of the homeless liaison commission individual, might be from Sutherland, but that's possible. So it may be wise to not cut somebody off. It may be more smarter to say, hey, if you live or work there, apply, and then be able to choose, because sometimes you don't want to lose somebody who works directly with the homeless that happens to be in Sutherland, and they work directly with the Roseburg homeless.
okay. So may I please rephrase that then? I think that we need to make sure that people that are directly impacted have an opportunity to vote. And so far as having your voices heard, I remember there was one homeless commission that I came to, and I noticed that Tom was there as well. And Tom wanted to make a comment, and you told him no, he wasn't allowed to comment because he's on council, and so he wasn't allowed to comment. And so not everybody gets their voices heard at those homeless commission meetings. But I think I think we need to make sure we allow the opportunity for people that are directly impacted to have a vote, because there are especially certain parts of this community that literally live in these homeless encampment neighborhoods that don't have an opportunity to make an impact. You can have your voice heard. It doesn't mean that you're making an impact. It doesn't mean that you're carrying any weight. And we've excluded those people up to now, and I just think it's very, very important to allow some of those folks to have an impact. And if that takes a vote, then I think that we need to make sure that some of those folks are allowed to sit on the commission and have a vote.
Yeah, no, I'm real picky about when you show up to council meeting or you show up to commission. If you want to speak, I'll give you a chance to speak. I don't think anybody will deny that. Now, Tom is a little different. He sits right here. So he carries a lot of weight in terms of speaking. And if he's going to show up to a homeless commission, then I'd rather him say it here rather than take somebody else's spot at a homeless commission. So that's a little different to me. But in terms of allowing somebody to speak, I guarantee you that is something I'm very, very picky about. In terms of we allow people to be heard. No matter if you agree with them or not, we allow them to be heard. And I even allow 6 minutes, and I have many people say that's way too long, but I allow them to have 6 minutes because no matter who you are, and even if you disagree with what I believe in, that's fine. You have the right to be heard.
Thank you. And I'm not arguing that point, Larry. You do let everybody speak, but I was just kind of surprised when Tom wasn't allowed to speak. That's why I brought that up.
And the only reason is because he's here, and he can speak here. You're up, Zach.
I completely agree with Ellen as far as making sure that the people that sit on that commission are vested in the community and are being affected by the situation at hand. I would say that I stand on a slightly different position, that I think it should be open as much as possible and take as many applicants as possible, and from there have a proper vetting process for those applicants to be on the homeless commission. I think it's more important to have a proper vetting one than to limit the application pool when it comes to that. Yeah.
Bruce got her hand up. She's had her hand up for a while.
Sorry about that.
Okay. You were looking.
Oh, you're up.
Okay. So my realm in the nonprofit organization world is every single one of the boards that they have to make sure that they have somebody that they are representing on their board. So you can, I ended up being the vice president and on the UCAN board because I was a person who they were serving. I received some of their benefits, and I met the criteria in order to be on their board. So I came on and was somebody who spoke to the board because of my life experience. NeighborWorks Umpqua, they have a certain number of board members that have to be part of the people they serve. And I think that this is kind of what Ellen and Zach are addressing, is that we have a bunch of people who are talking for the people that we're trying to serve, and their voices aren't being heard by the board members. And it's just something that they should have a seat at the table so that they are being represented. And I think that's the point. You've done a really good job of making sure that people, have an opportunity to come up and speak. But it's different when you're sitting at the table and you have a vote and you get to be part of the solutions, and it really makes a difference. So I think that's what it is that is being requested. And I think that it's something that I have really pushed for. Is like, I would really like to see the people that we are trying to help have a say at the type of help that they need and how the best way to benefit it. I know that we're looking at the money stuff, but sometimes the money stuff isn't the real need. So it really is important that we have somebody there that can represent the people that live with the stuff that's we're trying to solve.
Okay, so I want to go back to that original question in terms of live or work. Do we want to cut out the ones that work and just assume that we're going to not even look at them? Or do we want to consider the whole package and look at the whole package?
I feel it's important to have people who are impacted and maybe work, but maybe do not live within the school district, because I do think, and then there's some people who work at, like some of the nonprofits that deal directly with the unhoused that can help. They work here, but maybe they don't live within the school district. So I'm with Zach. The more people we can apply and a good pool that we can choose from, that we really think will make an impact on the Homeless Commission.
You're up, Zach.
Yeah, I mean, I would honestly say even a possibility to expand it to owning property within those boundaries, within those boundaries, because I know people that are contributing members of this community that don't live in any of that, but they own businesses or buildings or things like that in the areas that are directly affected, and I don't think that their opinion or voice should be discounted in any way, shape, or form. And I think, as much as I would like to agree with you, Larry, that being up there and having your 6 minutes is the same thing, getting up, having a voice up here is a much different situation than being in the 6 minutes at the podium up there. So I think having the opportunity for people to apply for that commission seat that maybe own buildings or own property or own businesses, something that's within those districts, I think is absolutely a valid option.
Okay, so I need to check what we're doing. It says live or work, which to me was a little broader. We don't want that. We want it to be real restricted in terms of you have to be affected and live real close to the area. Is that what
I'm actually going the opposite way. I'm going expand it more.
you're expanding it? So you want live or work included in there?
Live, work, or own property.
Oh, I thought you were crossing it off and saying now they got to live real close to the issue.
No, that's not me.
So you want to keep live or work in the Roseburg district? Oh, okay, I thought you were going the opposite. You're up, Katie.
I like the live or work. I'm not sure I agree with the or own property because we've got a lot of absentee owners that aren't affected directly.
I mean, would you vote for those ones to be on the board? Because I definitely wouldn't.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else? Tom, you're up.
I like liver work. Some kind of dish, liver work.
Live or work?
Yeah, I think if people live in our town or work in our town, are affected by the homeless, they should be able to have a seat on the homeless commission.
Okay, will you at least give me a little show of hands if you want to keep it as live or work? Those that want to live or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we will leave it as live or work. Anything else that we need to talk about in this first reading? All right, so give me a nodding the heads if we're ready for first reading. Okay.
Could you give me just 1 second? I wanted to clarify something. I may have a statement. Is that what it says, is live or work?
Yeah, it says live or
On the
work. It's
current one?
right in the middle of that second page.
Live or work, okay.
Okay, first reading.
Ordinance number 3620, an ordinance amending section 2.20.040 of the Roseburg Municipal Code and declaring an immediate effective date. This is your first reading.
All right, there's a request to suspend the rules and proceed with second reading. So do we have a motion to suspend the rules?
I move to suspend the rules and proceed with second reading of the ordinance number 3620, an ordinance amending section 2.20.040 of the Roseburg Municipal Code.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. So the next step is let's have second reading.
Ordinance number 3620, an ordinance amending section 2.20.040 of the Roseburg Municipal Code and declaring an immediate effective date. This is your second reading.
Okay, any questions? Do we have a motion to adopt 3620?
Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance number 3620.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Shelley Briggs Loosely,
Yes.
Zach Weiss,
Yes.
Kate Williams,
Yes.
Ellen Porter,
Yes.
Bruce Smith,
Yes.
Andrew Zielinski,
Yes.
Tom Mikulik.
Yes.
Motion carries. Therefore, ordinance number 3620 is adopted. We're going to move to number 9. Any items to come forward?
When it comes to the homeless commission, in the past, we are all those applicants going to be brought before us?
You'll always see the applications.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. And then so around that situation, I feel like in the past there was a situation where I had asked for an explanation from Shelley as to why she had picked somebody for that commission. I really think it's, and the answer was no when you had said that. So I understand that, but I do think that that is a part of this situation at hand that needs to be had and be made aware that that conversation of who's on that who's going to be on that commission needs to be an open conversation. This is more than just a commission. This is, there's people's lives at stake in this situation. It is getting worse. The situation is not getting better. So it's more than anything just a statement I want to put out there and make clear that this is going to be something that I think we should all push to have the right people sitting on this commission.
Okay, and that's fine. Just understand the way we work on the commissions. Whoever's the chair makes that decision, and then they're supposed to call me, and then we're supposed to make it together. And as I tell every one of you, you're the one that has to work with that person. You make darn sure you want to work with that person. And I won't say no to you if you say, hey, I want this one, unless I feel like you're not being honest. If you have some sneaky thing up the sleeve there, I'm not going to put up with that. But if you're being honest, you say, hey, I want this one because I think this is the one I want, then I don't get in your way. I don't say, no, I'm sorry, I'm not going to agree with you. I will back you up. Okay? So I don't mind having a discussion, but just realize you're going to have a discussion to tell Shelley, hey, this is one that I think, let's look at this one a little closely on all this stuff. But she's going to have the final say because she's the chair. Okay, and that's the same way I treat you if somebody said on your commission they want somebody else to say, Zach, listen to the person and then just realize you're going to make that call. Okay? Alrighty. We are at number, what's that? Oh, you had your hand up?
I did. I was a little bit confused by that. So what would happen then? Because don't we vote on those?
Yeah.
And so if the rest of the council wanted somebody else on there and we all voted,
You'd vote no. Right.
Right, and then
She'd go back to the drawing board and look for somebody else.
Okay, because you said she has the final say,
Yeah,
and so
yeah,
I mean,
she's
even
the
if
one
it-
that's going to make the motion. Yeah,
okay,
and then you guys can say, we don't like that person, and vote no, and then she has to go back through the pile and find somebody else.
Yeah, so
Okay.
so she makes the motion for the
Right,
she-
no, I get it. I just, but what I was getting kind of hung up on was that the mayor said that she gets the final say, and so, but if the council votes on it, then that's not necessarily the final say. So it was.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that's what kind of threw me there. The second, I want to emphasize again what Zach was talking about, because I remember when you asked that question and the response you got back was, no, I don't have to talk about that in public, and it's like, this is a public meeting. And so I think it's important to be able to hear those. So I agree with Zach on that. So it's very important to keep this transparent.
Yeah, and one of the things I want to kind of mention to everybody, I'm going to make a broad sweep on this one here. I don't mind if you do that, but I'm going to ask that you do it with your heart set on really wanting to know the answer, not trying to go after anybody or be negative at any way. And I'm just making a broad sweep on that in terms of always make darn sure that you're really serious about that and you'd like to know, hey, this is one that I think is really good. Can you consider that person? But no alternative cheap shot stuff. Okay? I don't put up with that. Okay? That's why I'm explaining it right now. Okay? So that's the reason why I'm making it really clear. Yep, that's right. Okay. We are on number 9.
You need to read the. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I got to ask any items.
That's what you just asked, and then that was that
Oh,
discussion.
that's it. Okay. We are on to H. All right, so I'm going to read the script. City Council will meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192.660, number 2, letter H, subsection 2H, allows the council to meet in executive session to consult with the city's attorney regarding the city's legal rights and duties in regard to current litigation or litigation that is more likely than not to be filed. Representative of the news media and designated staff are allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. Representative of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. And the council will not make any decision in the executive session. It is 9:03, and let's try to begin at 9:05. So take a 2-minute break if you need to.